There was a man who failed at everything. He was broke, anxious, and convinced he wasn't smart enough to change. But he did one thing differently. He started talking to himself like he was already the man he wanted to be. And slowly, without anything changing outside him, everything changed inside him. He didn't win the lottery. He didn't find luck. He just rewired the story he told himself, and the world followed. Because your mind doesn't wait for proof. It creates it. And what you repeat inside becomes your reality outside. Your life is being shaped by thoughts you never chose. It's time to take the power back. Watch till the end. This might be the moment your new life actually begins. Before we go deeper, let me ask you something personal. Question 1. What if every limitation you believe about yourself is just a sentence you've repeated too many times? Question 2. And what if the only thing keeping you stuck is the fact that your mind is still loyal to your past? Now, let's talk about the first real step, one most people ignore. Chapter 1. Reprogramming the Inner Voice. You become what you whisper to yourself daily, even when no one's listening. This chapter begins the deep internal journey, helping the listener understand the mind as a mirror, and that changing the voice inside is where all true transformation begins. Let's begin with a question most people never ask. What does your mind sound like when it talks to you? Not the voice you use with others, not the words you post online, but the voice inside your head, the one that speaks when you're quiet, the one that shows up right before you take a risk, the one that whispers when no one's watching. Because whether you realize it or not, that voice is writing your life, and it's doing it, one silent sentence at a time. Now, let's take a pause here. You've already walked through some heavy chapters. You've faced pain. You've destroyed comfort zones. You've learned discipline. You've built routines. You've even sat in silence and boredom, and kept going. But now we go even deeper. Now we don't just fix what you do. We fix what you say to yourself when you're alone. Because the truth is, you will never rise above the opinion you hold of yourself in your own mind. Not for long. You can change your habits. You can change your job. You can change your diet. But if your inner voice is still saying, "I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I don't have what it takes," then eventually, you'll find your way back to that identity, even if your life looks different on the outside. That's why this chapter matters. Because this isn't about motivation anymore. This is about reprogramming the narrator in your head. Let's be honest, that voice wasn't born inside you. It was built. Maybe it came from a teacher who doubted you. Maybe it was a parent who criticized everything. Maybe it was failure, heartbreak, rejection. Maybe it was the world telling you to play small. And without realizing it, you made their voices your own. You started repeating them. You started believing them. And now, they sound like you. But they're not you. They're just the echoes of old environments. Let me say something hard and true. The way you speak to yourself right now was likely never your choice, but it's your responsibility to change it. Because you can't build a strong life on weak language. You can't create peace when your inner voice is chaos. You can't build confidence while mentally insulting yourself every day. You can't lead your future with a mind that still believes your past. So how do you change it? How do you reprogram the inner voice? You start with awareness. Pay attention. Catch the thoughts. When you make a mistake, what's your first thought? Do you say, "I'm so stupid. Of course I failed again. Why do I always mess this up?" Those words matter, because the mind doesn't just think. It believes what it hears repeatedly. So the more you say it, the more your brain records it, and the more your identity starts to live inside it. But here's the good news. The brain can be rewired. It listens. It adapts. It responds to repetition. And just like you learned in Chapter 4, small actions, done consistently, create massive change. Now we apply that rule to the mind. Start with simple shifts. When you hear, "I'm lazy," replace it with, "I'm learning how to be disciplined." When your mind says, "I'll never change," you say, "I'm changing now, and I have proof." When your thoughts say, "This is too hard," you say, "Hard is where I get stronger." At first, it feels fake. Your old voice will fight back. It'll say, "You're lying to yourself." But remember, your old voice is built on repetition, not truth. It's not more real. It's just more practiced. So now, we practice something different. Every day, you give your mind a new script, one that aligns with who you're becoming, not who you used to be. Let's go deeper. You've built routines now. You've taken control of your mornings. You followed habits when motivation was gone. That proves something. You're already changing. Now, your inner voice needs to catch up. So create a moment every day, just 60 seconds, where you speak out loud the kind of person you are, not who you want to be, who you already are becoming. You say, "I'm focused. I'm calm. I'm intentional. I show up when it's hard. I don't run from growth. I rise with it." You say it until your mind stops arguing. You say it until your body believes it. You say it until your actions reflect it, because that's how you reprogram a voice. Not once, but daily, through repetition, through truth, through intention. Let's talk about intention. Most people live in reaction mode. They react to how they feel. They react to their doubts. They react to the world's opinions. But the moment you take control of your voice, you move from reaction to creation. You create a new atmosphere in your mind, one where peace becomes normal, where self-belief becomes automatic, where fear loses volume, where focus becomes your resting state. But this takes attention, because the old voice won't leave without resistance. It will whisper things like, "Be realistic. Stay small. Don't change too much." But now you'll recognize that voice. You'll know that's not truth. That's programming. And you're not here to repeat programming. You're here to rewrite it. Let's be practical. You want to reprogram the inner voice? Here are 3 habits to start immediately. 1. Daily self-talk rehearsal. Every morning, before the world speaks to you, speak to yourself. 2 minutes, no phone, no noise, just you, your voice, your truth. I am calm. I am focused. I am rising. I am in control. You don't wait to feel it. You say it until it feels like home. 2. Thought catching in real time. When a negative thought pops up, don't ignore it. Pause. Catch it. Challenge it. Say, "Is this helping me? Is this even true? Would I say this to someone I love?" If the answer is no, reframe it. Not with fantasy, but with strength. 3. Build evidence daily. Don't just speak power, live it. Every time you do something aligned with your new self, say it out loud, "That's who I am now." Made your bed, that's discipline. Skipped the junk food, that's control. Got up early, that's leadership. Celebrate the evidence. Your mind will follow what you repeat and reward. Let's wrap this in truth. You can't become new if your inner voice still speaks in the language of the old you. So take back the mic. Don't let your past run your future. Don't let your doubts write your script. You've already proven you can change your habits. Now prove you can change your narrative. Because the person you're becoming, they don't just move different, they think different, they speak different, and eventually, they become different. And it all starts with the voice you choose to believe. Let that voice be yours now. Not the one given to you, but the one built by you, word by word, day by day, thought by thought, because the mind is everything, and what you think, you become. Chapter 2. The Power of Belief Loops. Thoughts become beliefs. Beliefs shape actions. Actions define your identity. This chapter flows naturally after Chapter 1, reprogramming the inner voice, and now explores how beliefs are formed, and more importantly, How to break the invisible loops that keep people stuck in the same life over and over. In the last chapter, we talked about the voice inside your head, how it shapes your reality quietly, word by word. But today, we're going even deeper, because that voice, it doesn't just make noise, it builds beliefs. And beliefs, they build your life. Let's start here. Every decision you make is based on what you believe is possible, not what's actually true, not what's logical, not what you hope for, but what your mind has accepted as real. That's why two people can live through the same situation and walk out with totally different lives. One believes they're stuck, the other believes they're being shaped. One believes nothing ever works out for me. The other believes this is just part of the process. Same world, same pain. Different beliefs, different lives. So now we ask the real question. What do you believe about yourself deep down? Not what you say out loud, not what you post for motivation, but what you repeat in your head when things get hard. That's where your belief system lives. And most people, they're stuck inside what I call a belief loop. Let me explain. A belief loop is a cycle that looks like this. Thought, belief, action, result, thought again. It begins with a thought. I'm not good enough. That thought gets repeated, enough times to become a belief. Once it becomes a belief, it starts shaping your behavior. You stop trying, you sabotage your routines, you stay small. Those actions lead to results, or the lack of results, that seem to prove the belief was right. And when you see those results, the loop tightens. You think, see, I told you I wasn't good enough. And just like that, the loop repeats, again and again and again, until it becomes so normal, you stop questioning it. And now, you're not even living your life, you're just living your beliefs. But here's what most people don't know. That loop, it can be broken. And once you break it, you build a new one. Let's rewind. You learned in Chapter 1 that your mind believes what it hears most often. So, what happens when you change that input? You start saying, I don't quit when it gets hard. I'm still learning, and that's okay. I deserve growth. I deserve peace. At first it feels fake, but the more you say it, the more your brain accepts it, and eventually the new belief starts to feel familiar. And once the belief becomes familiar, it becomes a lens. And through that lens, you start acting differently. You take the cold shower, you do the deep work, you say no to the distraction, you take a risk, and those actions, they lead to new results, tiny wins, little proof, and that proof, it creates confidence, and that confidence reinforces the new thought. Maybe I can do this, and the loop starts over, only now it's working for you, not against you. That's the power of belief loops. They are either building your future or building your limitations. And most of the time, they're running without your permission. So here's where we pause, not to motivate, but to ask, what belief loops are secretly shaping your life right now? Let's look at a few that hide in plain sight. I'm just not a consistent person. Belief, you avoid structure. Action, you wing it, fail again. Result, you prove you can't stick to anything. Loop continues. People like me don't win. Belief, you downplay your goals. Action, you don't go all in. Result, you get average outcomes. Loop continues. I'll always be this way. Belief, you stop trying. Action, you keep repeating the past. Result, the past becomes your future. Loop continues. But now, you're becoming aware, and awareness, that's how we break the loop, because you can't change what you're not willing to confront. So now, you confront the thoughts, you name them, you question them, and slowly, you replace them. Here's how we do it. Step 1. Spot the loop. Pay attention to the thoughts that come up when you're tired, triggered, or failing. Ask, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? Step 2. Challenge the belief. Ask, where did this belief come from? Is it even mine? Is it true or just repeated? Most limiting beliefs weren't born inside you. They were planted there, by someone who doubted you, by a moment that broke you, by a system that boxed you in. But just because you inherited it doesn't mean you have to keep it. Step 3. Rewire the loop. Create a new belief, not fake, but empowering. For example, old belief, I always fail. New belief, I've failed, but I've also grown. And I keep showing up. That's not delusion. That's evidence-based self-respect. Now turn that belief into action. Do one small thing today that aligns with your new belief. Track it. Repeat it. Let the results speak. Because belief without action, that's just fantasy. But belief backed by behavior, that's identity. And identity is what lasts when motivation fades. Let's zoom out. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not too late. You're just running belief loops you never chose. But now, you're the architect. You've already built new habits. You've reprogrammed your voice. You've sat with discomfort, boredom, and silence. Now, you use all of it to create loops that elevate you. Beliefs that say, I don't chase change, I live it. I'm not afraid of slow growth. I trust my process. I'm not stuck. I'm building. I am who I choose to be, not who I was told to be. That's how it works. Belief, action, proof, stronger belief. And the loop strengthens. Not by force, not by hype, but by repetition and intention. You want to change your life? Then change the loop. Not the environment, not the people, not the surface, the loop. Because once the belief shifts, the actions follow. The identity shifts. The results begin. And the world starts responding to who you've become. Quietly, steadily, permanently. That's the power of belief. That's the power of your mind. And that's the loop that builds the life you were made to live. You were handed beliefs by family, society, and fear. It's time to question everything. This chapter continues smoothly after Chapter 2, where we discussed belief loops. Now we go deeper, asking the listener to challenge the very roots of those beliefs, the ones they never chose but still live by. Let's start with something most people never think about. What if most of your thoughts aren't even yours? Think about it. The way you view yourself, the way you handle failure, what you believe about love, money, happiness, success, discipline. Did you choose those beliefs? Or did you inherit them? From your parents, from your culture, from school, from your environment, from fear? Because here's the truth. Most people are living out mindsets they never consciously created. They're walking through life wearing lenses that someone else handed them, and they don't even realize it. They believe in limits, not because they've tested their potential, but because someone once said, that's not for you. They avoid risk, not because they're weak, but because they were taught to survive, not to grow. They settle for less, not because they want to, but because they've never seen what more even looks like. That's called mental inheritance. The thoughts, beliefs, and fears passed down to you like family heirlooms, not questioned, not challenged, just accepted. And now, you're living with their consequences. But here's the good news. You can break the chain. You can question everything. You can choose a new way of thinking. And that's what this chapter is about. Because until you face your mental inheritance, you'll keep living inside someone else's version of reality. Let's get specific. Ask yourself, what did you inherit about failure? Were you taught to fear it? To avoid it at all costs? To see it as a sign that you're not good enough? Or were you taught that failure is feedback? That it's how you learn? That it's a normal part of progress? Because how you view failure will determine whether you try at all. What did you inherit about money? Were you taught that money is hard to get? That it's only for certain kinds of people? That it's greedy to want more? Or were you taught that money is a tool, that it's freedom, that it's okay to build and grow as long as you stay grounded? Because your beliefs about money will silently control your behavior, even if you're not aware of them. What did you inherit about you? Were you told you were smart or average? Were you seen as capable or careless? Were you given space to grow or boxed into a label? Because those early impressions, they don't disappear. They become your internal ceiling, a ceiling that says, "This is just how I am. People like me don't get far. I'm not cut out for more." But now we ask the question, what if that ceiling was never real? What if it was just a belief, passed down to you? Let's go even deeper. Some of us were raised in environments of fear. Fear of standing out, fear of being too ambitious, fear of being too much, fear of breaking family norms, fear of speaking up, fear of failing publicly. So we shrink. We lower our voice. We bury our talents. We hide our hunger. Not because we lack power, but because we were trained to feel safe in silence. That's the kind of inheritance we carry, invisible but heavy. And that's why it's so important to interrupt the cycle. Because if you don't, you'll pass it on to others. To your children, to your friends, to your future self. Not through your words, but through your example. So here's what breaking the cycle looks like. Step 1. Trace it back. Look at a belief you hold today. Example: I'm not creative. Ask, where did that come from? Was there a moment, a comment, a comparison? Did someone say it directly? Or was it implied? Once you trace it, you start to separate the belief from your identity. Because if it came from somewhere, that means it's not part of who you are. Step 2. Question the source. Now ask, was that person right? Were they speaking from wisdom or from their own fear? Sometimes we inherit beliefs from people who loved us, but didn't know how to encourage us. They were scared, too. They were limited, too. They weren't trying to hurt us. They were just passing on what they knew. But that doesn't make it true. So forgive them if you need to. But don't carry their fear any further. Step 3. Write your own rules. Once you clear the old programming, you need to install new thoughts. This is where your power comes back. You say, I can grow without permission. I don't have to follow a script I didn't write. I'm allowed to want more, even if no one around me understands. I'm not here to repeat. I'm here to rebuild. And then, you take action. Because belief without behavior? That's just theory. But belief backed by action? That's freedom. So now you live by your new mental code. You make small choices that prove, I'm not repeating the past, I'm creating something new. And day by day, the inheritance fades, the cycle breaks, the real you emerges. Let's pause here. You've done deep work already. You've reprogrammed your inner voice. You've started breaking belief loops. And now, you're unlearning the mental inheritance that was never truly yours. That's rare, because most people never slow down long enough to ask, why do I think the way I think? But you are. And that awareness, that's your freedom. Because the most powerful belief you can hold is this: I get to choose what stays in my mind and what gets left behind. Not everything you were taught was wrong, but not everything was right either. So now, you keep what aligns, and you let go of what limits. That's how transformation becomes permanent. Not just changing your habits, not just changing your schedule, but changing your foundation. Because from this chapter forward, you no longer live by mental inheritance. You live by mental ownership. And that ownership, it changes everything. How to stop your brain from running old patterns that keep you stuck. This chapter builds naturally on Chapter 3, Escaping Mental Inheritance. Now that we've questioned where our beliefs came from, it's time to deal with the thinking patterns they've created, especially the negative ones that keep playing on repeat. Let's begin with a truth that's hard to accept. Your thoughts shape your life, but not every thought deserves your attention. By now, you've started to see the blueprint. You've challenged old beliefs. You've traced them back to where they came from. You've started building new identity systems. You've even started choosing your inner voice instead of blindly following it. But now, it's time to deal with something bigger. The cycle. The loop of negativity that runs in the background of your life, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet, but always there. It shows up when you try something new, when you face silence, when you're tired, when you've had a small setback. It sounds like, I knew this wouldn't work. Why do I even try? I'll never get this right. This is just who I am. They're all better than me. These thoughts don't come from truth. They come from pattern. They're familiar, and the brain loves what's familiar, even if it's painful. That's the cycle of negative thinking, not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because your mind is trying to protect you with outdated strategies. So let's break this cycle, not just with motivation, but with understanding, because once you understand the cycle, you can escape it. Let's break it down. The 4-part negative thought cycle. 1. Trigger. Something happens. You make a mistake. You feel ignored. You see someone doing better. You're tired. 2nd. Interpretation. You assign meaning to it. Not truth, just interpretation. I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. I'll never catch up. 3. Emotional reaction. Your body reacts to the story. You feel sad, anxious, numb, angry. 4. Behavior. You act based on that emotion. You give up. You lash out. You scroll for hours. You isolate. And then the loop starts again. The next time a trigger shows up, you already have a pathway waiting for it. It follows the same road. Trigger, thought, feeling, reaction. Repeat. This is how your brain conserves energy. It doesn't think freshly. It follows routines, even mental ones. But here's the good news. If your brain can learn the wrong pattern, it can learn the right one. Let's talk about how. Step 1. Catch it early. The faster you recognize the thought, the less power it has. Start noticing the moment a thought enters. I'm behind. They probably don't like me. I failed again. Don't react to it. Just label it. That's a negative pattern. Why does that matter? Because awareness breaks autopilot. You can't change what you're not aware of. But once you see the loop forming, you interrupt it. Even just saying to yourself, I see what my brain is doing, is enough to loosen its grip. Step 2. Ask better questions. Negative thinking always comes with assumptions. They're judging me. I'll never get this right. But instead of arguing with the thought, ask a better question. Is this a fact or just a feeling? What's another way to see this? What would I tell a friend if they said this to me? These questions shift your brain from reactive mode to reflective mode, and reflection is where the pattern gets rewired. Step 3. Choose a replacement thought. Don't just fight the thought, replace it. But here's the key. Don't fake it. Don't say, I'm amazing and everything is perfect. Your brain knows that's not real. Instead, find something believable but better. For example, instead of, I can't do this, try, I'm still learning, but I've come far. Instead of, I always mess up, try, I've made mistakes, but I'm growing. Instead of, I'm not good enough, try, I'm not perfect, but I'm showing up. That matters. These aren't affirmations. They're reframes, and reframing trains your brain to think in a new direction. Step 4. Reinforce with action. Once you shift the thought, prove it with behavior. Take one small action that reflects your new belief. Feeling like you're behind? Write one line. Take one step? Send one message. Feeling like you're not disciplined? Show up for 5 minutes. That small action tells your brain, this new path is real. And every time you act on the better thought, You strengthen a new mental muscle. Let's pause. You've made it through some heavy mental work so far. You've rebuilt the way you talk to yourself. You've exposed inherited beliefs. You've started breaking the inner voice loops that used to run your life. Now, you're no longer a victim of your thoughts. You're the observer. You're the interrupter. You're the rewriter. And that's powerful. Because your brain, it's plastic. It changes. It rewires. It adapts. And when you stop feeding the old loops, they weaken. Just like a muscle. What you don't use shrinks. So every time you replace a negative loop with a new one, every time you pause instead of panic, every time you speak gently instead of harshly, you're building a new cycle. Let's call it the positive thought loop. Here's how that works. 1. Trigger, same as before. Something challenges you. 2nd, interpretation. But now you say, this is hard, but I've handled worse. 3rd, emotion. You feel focused, calm, resilient. 4. Behavior. You show up, you act, you stay steady, and what happens next? Momentum. And momentum builds confidence. And confidence builds identity. And identity becomes your new normal. So what's the real goal of this chapter? Not to never think negative. That's impossible. The goal is to break the cycle faster, to go from 3 days of mental spiraling to 3 hours, to 3 minutes, to 3 seconds, until the cycle that used to own you now reports to you. Because you've taught your mind something powerful. I am not my thoughts. I am the thinker. I choose what stays. I choose what grows. I choose what defines me. And once you learn that, you're free. Free from the loops. Free from the inner noise. Free from the story that used to play on repeat in your head. And that freedom, that's what makes you unstoppable. Now, let's connect this with earlier chapters. You've learned how to reprogram your inner voice. You've studied belief loops. You've questioned your inheritance. You've disrupted negative cycles. This chapter, it teaches you how to protect your mental space from made-up problems. Because the strongest people you know, they're not fearless. They just stopped giving power to imaginary fear. They understand this truth. The mind will always tell stories, but not all stories deserve to be believed. Let's talk practical again. What does the imagination trap sound like in real life? I won't go to the gym. People will stare. I can't speak up. What if I say the wrong thing? I'm not ready yet. I'll probably fail. I'll never be like them. They have it easier. Now catch this. None of those are facts. They're projections. They're scenes from a mental movie that hasn't even begun. And yet, they hold real power. Until you challenge them. So here's a tool you can use daily. The imagination flip. Whenever your mind gives you a negative "what if," flip it immediately. What if I fail? What if I figure it out? What if they don't accept me? What if I inspire them? What if I'm not ready? What if this is exactly how I grow? This isn't wishful thinking. This is intentional redirection. Because if fear is allowed to lead your imagination, you'll always see life through a distorted lens. But if courage takes the lead, everything changes. Let's pause and bring it home. Your mind is powerful. It can build you or break you. Imagination is neutral. It's a tool, a projector, a creator. The question is, who's writing the script? Is it fear, doubt, the past? Or is it vision, faith, possibility? Because if you're brave enough to flip the narrative, you'll see something most people never do. Your best life begins the moment you stop reacting to thoughts and start directing them. So next time your brain starts playing the worst-case movie, pause, take a breath, and say, this isn't real, but what I choose next is. Chapter 6. Speak it until it's real. Why your self-talk matters more than your motivation. This chapter follows naturally after Chapter 5, The Imagination Trap. You've now seen how your brain creates imagined pain. Now it's time to learn how to use your words to create imagined power. Because if your mind believes what it hears the most, then what you say about yourself might be the most important thing you do all day. Let's go back for a second. You've been working on your thoughts. You've broken negative loops. You've questioned old beliefs. You've even caught your mind when it wandered off into fear and imagination. But now we go a step further, because thoughts matter. But what you speak gives those thoughts life. Your voice, the one you use every single day, is either building you or slowly breaking you. Words create worlds, and the words you speak about yourself, they become the script that your identity follows. Let that sink in. You are becoming the story you repeat out loud, not the story you want, not the one you hope for, but the one you say. Think about this. Have you ever heard someone say, "I'm just not good with people. I always procrastinate. I'm not creative. I never finish things. I'm bad at relationships. I'm not built for this." And they say it so casually, like it's just a fact. But it's not a fact. It's a sentence. A sentence they've spoken so many times that it became a belief. And once it became a belief, it started showing up in their behavior. And their behavior created proof. And now they think, "See? I told you." But all of that started with a sentence. That's the power of self-talk. Now let's flip it. Have you ever said something powerful about yourself, even when it didn't feel true yet? Something like, "I always find a way. I'm growing every day. I'm disciplined even when I don't feel like it. I keep my promises to myself. I'm not there yet, but I'm closer than I've ever been." And you say it once, then twice, then daily. And slowly, something shifts. You start believing it. You start acting like it. And eventually, it becomes real. That's the key to this chapter. Speak it until it's real. Because your brain listens when you speak. Your body listens. Your future listens. Let's go deeper. Most people wait to feel ready before they speak like they've changed. They wait to believe in themselves before saying something strong. But here's the truth. The voice comes first. The feeling comes later. You don't speak because you believe. You believe because you speak. It's just like building a muscle. At first, you can barely lift it. It feels fake, weak, awkward. But over time, with repetition and resistance, it grows. Same with your self-talk. At first, it feels silly. You might even feel like you're lying to yourself. But if you keep showing up with the words, the identity will follow. Because your brain learns through repetition. It doesn't need proof. It needs practice. Let's connect it to the last chapters. In Chapter 3, we talked about mental inheritance. Remember? Many of the things you say about yourself aren't even yours. They were handed to you by family, school, fear, or failure. But you repeated them so often, your brain made them true. Now you take control back. You choose the words that align with who you're becoming, not who you used to be. You build a new identity, one sentence at a time. Let's talk real examples. Let's say you want to become disciplined. You don't wait until you're perfectly consistent. You start speaking like someone who is, "I'm building discipline every day. I don't need motivation. I just show up. I do what needs to be done, even when I don't feel like it." The more you say it, the more your brain expects it. The more you expect it, the more you do it. The more you do it, the more real it becomes. Now you've created a self-fulfilling identity loop. Let's break down how to use this in your life. Here's a simple 3-step formula. Step 1. Identify the old sentence. What's something you say about yourself that keeps you stuck? "I always give up." "I'm not confident." "I never follow through." Write it down. Say it out loud. Not to keep it, but to confront it. You can't change what you don't face. Step 2. Rewrite it with intention. Now flip it into a better truth. Not a fantasy, a declaration. Something like, I'm learning to finish what I start. My confidence grows every time I speak with honesty. I follow through because I trust myself. Make sure it's powerful, but believable. You're not trying to lie to your brain. You're trying to lead it. Step 3. Repeat it until it feels normal. Say it daily. Say it out loud. Say it even when you don't feel it, especially when you don't feel it, because repetition creates recognition, and recognition creates reality. Eventually, you won't just say it. You'll act like it. And when your actions match your voice, that's when identity becomes unshakable. Let's zoom out. What you speak over yourself every day becomes your mental diet. You are feeding your mind with words. And those words are either making you stronger or keeping you small. And just like you wouldn't eat junk food all day and expect to feel amazing, you can't speak weakness all day and expect to feel powerful. So now, you change the language. You speak like the person you're becoming. Here are some powerful phrases to build into your day. I am focused, even when distracted. I rise after failure. That's who I am. I create discipline with every small action. I trust my process, even when it's slow. I am no longer waiting. I am building. These aren't empty words. They are seeds. Plant them, water them, and give them time. Because identity isn't built by what you know. It's built by what you declare. So the next time you feel stuck, don't ask for more motivation. Don't wait for better feelings. Just speak. Speak who you are. Speak where you're going. Speak like the future version of you is already here and showing you the way. Because when you speak it enough, you'll start to believe it. And when you believe it, you'll start to live it. And when you live it, it becomes real. Speak it until it's real. Because the life you want begins with the words you're brave enough to say. Chapter 7. Thoughts that build, not break. Replace silent self-sabotage with thoughts that move you forward. This chapter builds smoothly on Chapter 6, Speak It Until It's Real, and now moves from vocal declarations to the inner architecture of thought, teaching how to intentionally build a mind that supports growth, resilience, and transformation. Let's start with a simple truth. Your thoughts are not just commentary. They're construction. Every thought you repeat, every sentence you whisper to yourself, is either building you brick by brick or slowly breaking you down from the inside. But most people never realize this. They live with a mind that quietly tears them apart. Not loudly, not dramatically, but subtly, invisibly, and constantly. Think back to everything you've learned so far. You've reprogrammed your inner voice. You've interrupted belief loops. You've escaped the mental inheritance you didn't choose. You've broken negative cycles. You've stopped believing in imaginary disasters. And you've begun speaking the future into existence. Now, it's time to build your inner world with thoughts that actually support your next level. Because here's the hard truth. You can have good habits. You can have big goals. But if your thoughts are against you, you'll lose the battle from the inside. Let's break this down. Every thought you think creates one of two things. 1. A mental barrier. 2. A mental bridge. A barrier says, I can't. It's too hard. This always happens to me. I'll never catch up. I'm not like them. A bridge says, I've done hard things before. I'm learning. I don't have to be perfect to keep going. This is shaping me. I'm not behind. I'm building. Same situation, different thoughts, completely different outcomes. Let's go deeper. Many people carry silent self-sabotage. It doesn't scream, it whispers. I'm tired. I'll do it tomorrow. This one slip-up doesn't matter. They won't notice. Just 5 more minutes scrolling? I've already messed up. What's the point? These thoughts don't feel dangerous, but they slowly dissolve discipline, confidence, and identity. And over time, you don't even notice the damage. You just feel stuck, unmotivated, disconnected, not realizing. It started with thoughts that broke you. But here's the key. You are not your thoughts. You are the architect of them. And just like a builder selects the right materials for a house, you get to choose the thoughts that support the life you're building. Let's talk about the difference between weak thoughts and strong ones. Weak thoughts focus on excuses, protect your comfort, sound like survival, repeat old pain. Ask, why me? Strong thoughts focus on responsibility, push you into growth, sound like purpose, remind you of progress. Ask, what's next? One set makes you a prisoner, the other set makes you powerful. And every day, in every situation, you get to choose which ones you feed. Let's explore this practically. You wake up late. A weak thought says, you messed up. Today's already ruined. A strong thought says, you lost the morning. That doesn't mean you lose the day. You miss a workout. A weak thought says, you're not consistent. You'll never change. A strong thought says, you slipped once. Get back on track now. That's what consistency means. You feel behind in life. A weak thought says, everyone's ahead of you. It's too late. A strong thought says, you're on your own timeline. Use this moment to move, not compare. Do you see the pattern? One thought leads to paralysis. The other leads to action. That's the difference between thoughts that build and thoughts that break. So now the question is, how do you train your mind to think stronger thoughts? Here's how. Step 1. Identify the hidden scripts. Most negative thoughts are recycled. They're not new. They're loops from your past. So start listening. What do you say when you're stressed? What's the first thought when you fail? What story comes up when you feel insecure? Write them down. Don't judge, just observe. You're not broken. You're just running an outdated script. Step 2. Build the replacement bank now for each breaking thought. Build a building thought. You don't have to go from I hate my life to I love everything. You just need one level better. From I always give up. This time I'm learning to last. I'm not smart enough. I can grow into this skill. No one supports me. I'm becoming someone who supports myself. Do this until you have a library of powerful thoughts. This becomes your mental bank. Every time a breaking thought shows up, you withdraw a building one. Chapter 8. Creating Mental Momentum. How to Stay in Motion Even When Motivation Fades. This chapter follows smoothly after Chapter 7. Thoughts that build, not break. Now that you've learned how to think stronger thoughts, we shift into staying in motion, not just for a few days, but over time. This chapter is about how to generate and protect the energy that keeps progress alive, even when you're tired, unmotivated, or uncertain. Let me tell you something most people never hear. You don't need to be fast. You just need to keep moving. That's it. One step, one breath, one small push forward. Because the secret to massive change isn't in intensity. It's in momentum. And here's what momentum is. It's the invisible force that makes the next step easier than the last. It's the reason showing up today is easier when you showed up yesterday. It's not hype. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's movement, done consistently enough that it becomes automatic. Now let's link this to where you've come from. You've rebuilt the way you talk to yourself. You've shattered belief loops. You've removed old mental inheritance. You've learned how to break the spiral of negative thinking. You've stopped falling for imagination traps. You've started speaking your future into existence. And you've trained your mind to think in ways that build you. But here's the challenge. Even with all of that, there are still days when it feels hard to keep going. Days when you feel stuck, unmotivated, flat, frustrated. And those are the moments when you need one thing more than anything else: mental momentum. Let's define it simply. Mental momentum is the compound effect of consistent, intentional thought and action. It's what turns one day of discipline into a week, then a week into a habit, then a habit into identity. It's not built overnight, but once you have it, you can feel it. Things start to flow. Decisions become easier. Confidence rises. Resistance lowers. And life feels lighter. Let me tell you why this matters. Most people live in mental resets. They start, stop, crash, restart, stop again. They live in loops of high effort followed by exhaustion. Why? Because they chase motivation, but never build momentum. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Momentum is structural. It stays. And once you have it, you don't need to convince yourself anymore. The system runs on its own. Let's break this into 5 clear steps to create mental momentum that lasts. Step 1. Master the start. Momentum begins with a start. Not a big start. A small, honest one. Don't think about the full workout. Just put on your shoes. Don't overplan the business. Just write down the idea. Don't try to be perfect. Just begin. Because once you start, you shift the energy. You go from stagnant to moving, from frozen to active. And that shift is what builds momentum. So stop waiting for the perfect mood. Start doing something, anything, that signals movement. Even the smallest win triggers the next. Step 2. Eliminate resistance. Early, every time you have to think about it, you give your brain a chance to talk you out of it. So eliminate decisions. Remove friction. Want to wake up earlier? Set your clothes the night before. Want to eat better? Prep the meal in advance. Want to work without distraction? Block the app ahead of time. Make the right thing easy. Make the wrong thing hard. Momentum is not just built through action. It's protected through structure. The easier it is to keep moving, the more likely you are to continue. Step 3. Attach meaning to movement. You're not just going to the gym. You're proving to yourself that you don't quit. You're not just meditating. You're mastering your emotions. You're not just reading. You're sharpening your mind. Give your actions meaning. Because meaningless movement dies quickly. But movement tied to identity? That builds unstoppable drive. Every action you take is a vote for who you want to become. Tie it to something that matters, and you'll keep going. Step 4. Track the tiny wins. Momentum is fueled by proof. And proof doesn't have to be huge. It can be 1 chapter, read 1 task completed, 1 temptation resisted. 1 morning, you didn't snooze 1 deep breath instead of an argument. Write it down. See it. Celebrate it. Why? Because the brain believes what it sees. And when it sees wins, it wants more of them. You're training your nervous system to recognize progress. And when your mind sees that you're moving, it gives you the energy to keep going. Chapter 9. Protecting the mental environment. What you consume becomes what you think, so filter your inputs. This chapter follows naturally from Chapter 8, Creating Mental Momentum. After building forward energy and habits, we now shift to protecting your progress. Because it's not just about what you do, it's also about what you allow in. Your mind is a garden. This chapter teaches how to guard the gate. Let me start with a powerful reminder. You become what you let in. Not just what you think, not just what you say, but what you absorb. Your mental environment. What you hear, what you see, what you scroll, what you talk about, shapes what your mind believes is normal. It becomes your baseline, your center, your subconscious belief of what's true. And if you don't take control of it, the world will fill it for you. Let's go back for a second. You've built a lot. You've rewritten the voice inside your head. You've broken old beliefs. You've let go of inherited thoughts that never served you. You've caught yourself in cycles of negativity and replaced them. You've stopped falling for imagination traps. You've spoken your future into reality. You've fed yourself stronger thoughts. You've built momentum through consistency and clarity. But all of that can be weakened if your environment is poisoning your mind. Think about it like this. You're trying to grow strong. You've planted the right seeds. You're watering them with new thoughts. You're showing up every day. But you're also pouring in distraction, drama, comparison, and doubt daily. You're consuming messages that make you feel behind. You're surrounded by people who speak from fear. You're watching content that makes your goals feel impossible. You're filling your space with noise that drowns your clarity. And slowly, without noticing, your progress starts to fade. Not because you're lazy, not because you're broken, but because you forgot to protect your garden. Let's define the mental environment clearly. It's made of what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, who you spend time with, what you talk about, what you scroll past, what you repeat internally. Every one of those things is an input, and inputs become identity. So, if your inputs are negative, distracting, loud, fear-based, chaotic, shallow, addictive, then, no matter how hard you work internally, you're fighting a war with yourself, because your subconscious is being fed by the very thing you're trying to outgrow. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're trying to become more confident. You've started showing up. You've started speaking better to yourself. But all day long, you're watching people online who look perfect. You're listening to friends who constantly complain. You're replaying old conversations where you failed. You're feeding your brain with stories that say, "You're not enough." Now, your progress slows. Not because your effort changed, but because your environment didn't support it. You're trying to grow in toxic soil. So, what's the answer? You become a mental gatekeeper. You treat your mind like your home, and you don't let just anything inside. You filter, you protect, you defend. Not out of fear, but out of clarity. Because you know, a healthy mind requires healthy space. And that space isn't just physical. It's emotional. It's digital. It's relational. It's internal. Let's break this into 5 powerful shifts. Shift 1. Audit what you consume. Spend a full day noticing your inputs. What shows up in your feed? What do you hear on the radio or podcast? What are your YouTube recommendations? What are people around you always talking about? Now ask, does this support who I'm becoming? Or does this feed who I'm trying to leave behind? Not everything needs to be productive, but it does need to be aligned. Does it make you clearer or more chaotic? Inspired or numb? Grounded or anxious? This audit is the first defense line of your environment. Shift 2. Unfollow to focus. If something drains you, distracts you, or deceives you, let it go. Unfollow, mute, unsubscribe, silence it. Not because you hate it, but because you're in training. You're building something real. You don't have space for everything. Your attention is fuel, so don't waste it on people, trends, or content that doesn't fuel your future. Remember, every scroll is a choice. Every scroll is a seed. Shift 3. Curate your circle. Now let's talk about people. Your circle doesn't have to be huge, but it must be healthy. The people around you should. Speak from vision, not victimhood. Encourage your evolution, not resist it. Celebrate your growth, not mock it. Push you gently, not guilt you constantly. Sometimes the most powerful environment shift you'll ever make is removing access from people who always pull you backward. You can love someone and still not let them have daily access to your energy. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks, and only the right ones get keys. Shift 4. Create silent spaces. Noise is the enemy of clarity, and in a world where everything is screaming for your attention, silence becomes a superpower. So build mental space for stillness. Start your day without your phone. Go for a walk with no music. Take 5 minutes just to breathe. Write your thoughts down without editing them, because in the silence, You'll hear what your real self is saying, and once you reconnect with that, you stop needing constant external input to feel alive. Shift 5. Feed the mind that's growing finally. Replace what you removed. Read books that sharpen you. Listen to voices that challenge you. Watch stories that remind you what's possible. Speak words that reinforce your strength. Every piece of content, every conversation, every note you leave for yourself should reflect where you're going, because you're not trying to escape the world. You're trying to build a stronger one inside yourself. And the world inside you is built through repetition. So feed it daily, with care, with alignment, with intention. Let's wrap this with a reminder. You've worked too hard to change, to let the world steal it from you through careless inputs. This chapter isn't about hiding. It's about honoring the work you've done. It's about defending the new story you're writing, the one where your voice is strong, your vision is clear, and your roots run deep. You don't let weeds into the garden you just rebuilt. You don't leave the gate open to thieves when you've filled your house with treasure. Your thoughts are sacred, your mind is sacred, and your future depends on what you allow in. So, from this moment on, you're no longer just building your mind. You're protecting it. You're no longer just speaking your truth. You're guarding it. You're no longer just showing up. You're creating a space that makes it easier to show up, because a protected mind is a powerful one. And a powerful mind doesn't just survive the noise, it rises above it. Chapter 10. Becoming the Thinker. Not the thought. The final step, how to live with power, awareness, and full control of your mind. This chapter closes the journey that began with questioning negative beliefs and ends with mastering the mind itself. After building better thoughts, better routines, and better momentum, now comes the most important shift, realizing you are not your thoughts. You are the one who chooses them. Let me begin with a sentence that can change everything. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker behind them. Most people live their whole life without ever realizing this. They think they are what they think. They believe every mental message. They trust every inner whisper. They follow every emotional signal as truth. But here's the breakthrough. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean you have to accept it. Let's go back and remember where we started. You used to live in automatic thoughts. You used to believe whatever your mind said, no questions asked. But then, you rewrote your inner voice. You broke belief loops. You challenged mental inheritance. You replaced fear-based thoughts. You learned to speak truth until it felt real. You trained your thoughts to build, not break. You created mental momentum. You protected your environment like your peace depended on it. Now we end with the final shift, the one that brings everything together, the one that puts you in the driver's seat, fully, permanently, deeply. This is the chapter where you stop being the victim of your mind and become its master. Let's break this down. Your mind is always active. It's generating thoughts all the time, thousands, constantly. Some are helpful, some are random, some are harmful, some are brilliant. But here's the mistake most people make. They treat all thoughts equally. They let every thought lead to a feeling, every feeling to a reaction, every reaction to a decision, and then they wonder why life feels confusing, emotional, unstable, because they never learned to pause and ask, wait, is this thought even mine? Let's use a simple metaphor. Your mind is like a sky. Your thoughts are clouds. Some clouds are dark, some are light, some pass by quickly. Some seem to stay forever. But no matter what kind of clouds are in the sky never changes. You, the thinker, are the sky. Stable, grounded, constant. The thoughts, they come and go. This changes everything. Because if you are the sky, then you don't need to panic every time a dark cloud shows up. You can just observe it, breathe through it, let it pass. You're not the cloud. You're the space that holds it. Let's look at this practically. A thought appears. I'm not good enough. Most people attach to it. They agree with it. They feel bad. They act like it's true. But when you become the thinker, you step back and say, interesting. That thought appeared again. That's it. You don't resist it. You don't panic. You don't shame yourself. You just observe it. You realize it's not you. It's just a visitor. And now, you choose what to do with it. That's freedom. Let's go deeper. There's a space between stimulus and response. A tiny moment, a breath. And in that space, you get to decide, do I believe this? Do I want this? Does this serve me? Does this move me forward? Most people react instantly. But you now live in that space. You've trained for this moment. Every chapter before this has been preparation. Now it's time to use that awareness. Here's what becoming the thinker looks like. A fear-based thought appears. You're going to fail. You pause and say, that's just a fear, not a fact. A jealous thought appears. Why are they ahead of me? You breathe and say, that's comparison. I'm on my path. A quitting thought appears. This is too hard. You recognize it. That's resistance. I've handled worse. You start recognizing thoughts like old characters in a movie. Oh, there's the voice of doubt again. There's insecurity trying to speak up. There's that old story from childhood. And instead of reacting, you choose. You respond. You decide. That's what it means to be the thinker. Let me give you 3 tools that help lock in this power. Tool 1. Label the thought. The moment a difficult or draining thought shows up, name it. This is fear. This is past trauma. This is self-doubt. This is ego. This is an old story. Naming the thought separates you from it. It reminds your brain, this isn't me. This is something passing through me. And that's how you take away its control. Tool 2. Breathe before you believe. Never trust a thought that shows up in emotional chaos. When your mind is stormy, breathe. Come back to center. Then ask, is this true? Is this useful? Is this old pain dressed as new fear? Is this something I want to bring forward with me? This pause gives your higher mind time to speak, and often that's all you need to stop the spiral. Tool 3. Replace the thought with power. After you've named it and breathed through it, replace it, not with a fantasy, but with something real and strong. I don't know how I'll do this, but I've figured out harder things. I feel fear, but I also feel ready. This doubt doesn't define me. My actions do. I've come too far to think like I used to. These are builder thoughts, and the more you choose them, the more natural they feel. And one day, you realize, the thoughts that used to shake you no longer own you. Let's reflect on the full journey. You didn't just change your thoughts. You didn't just change your routines. You didn't just change your habits. You changed your identity. You moved from passive to active, victim to leader, reactive to intentional confused to clear broken to whole. And now, you've become the thinker. Not the thought, not the fear, not the memory, not the opinion, not the reaction. You are the awareness behind it all, and that is the greatest power you will ever hold. Let's close with this. Your mind will never be silent. It will always speak, always whisper, always create stories. That's not a flaw. That's not a problem. That's just the nature of being alive, being human, being conscious. The key is no longer being controlled by it. You don't stop the thoughts. You simply stop becoming them. You watch them. You choose them. You lead them. And with that, you finally live in your own mind, not as a prisoner, but as the creator. You've done the work. Now live the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker, the builder, the author, the master, the sky behind the storm, the quiet behind the noise, the light behind the cloud, and now you get to write the rest of the story on your terms. Chapter 11. Emotional Mastery. Respond. Don't react. Learning to master your emotions instead of being mastered by them. This chapter flows naturally from Chapter 10. Becoming the thinker, not the thought. Now that you've learned to observe your thoughts, it's time to do the same with your emotions. Those powerful, often overwhelming forces that, if left unchecked, can derail your peace, your decisions, and your progress. Let's start here. Have you ever said something in anger you wish you could take back? Or made a quick decision in fear that cost you time, money, or peace? Of course you have. We all have. That moment, that flash of emotion, where you react before you think. That's what this chapter is all about. It's about learning to slow the storm, not stop it, not deny it, but respond to it, with awareness. Because here's the truth. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means your emotions stop controlling you. You've come so far. You've rebuilt your thoughts. You've spoken strength into existence. You've found momentum, filtered your inputs, and remembered. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker. Now comes the next evolution. You are not your emotions either. You are the one who feels them, not the one ruled by them. That's the shift. Let's break it down simply. There's a difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is instant. It's raw. It's unfiltered. A response is thoughtful, grounded, controlled. Reaction is when your emotion speaks first. Response is when your wisdom speaks after. One adds chaos. The other adds clarity. Let's go deeper. Most people live in emotional reactivity. They don't know it, but they've become slaves to their nervous system. Something goes wrong. They snap. Someone disrespects them. They explode. A plan falls apart. They spiral. It's not because they're weak. It's because they were never taught emotional discipline. Let's define emotional mastery. It's not about suppression. It's not about pretending to be unbothered. It's not about being cold or numb. It's about being so aware of your inner world that nothing inside of you controls what you do on the outside. That's strength. Let's take anger. Anger itself isn't bad. It's data. It's a message. But unmanaged anger, that's damage. It wrecks relationships. It shuts down growth. It creates regret. Now take fear. Fear is also natural. It protects. It signals. It warns. But unchallenged fear, it becomes avoidance. It becomes overthinking. It becomes a life unlived. Now, sadness. Healthy sadness is human, but unchecked sadness can lead to disconnection, apathy, withdrawal. The key is to feel every emotion without becoming it. Here's how emotional mastery is built. Not in a day, not in a book, but in moments, one at a time. It begins with awareness. Let's start with a truth that hurts to hear. Most people trade everything they want most for what they want right now. A donut instead of discipline. A scroll instead of silence. Comfort instead of growth. Distraction instead of purpose. Not because they're weak, but because they never learned the skill that separates average lives from exceptional ones. Delayed gratification. You've come so far. You've rebuilt your thoughts. You've created momentum. You've protected your mind. You've stopped reacting. You've started choosing. And now, you're ready to build the kind of future that can't be shaken. But to do that, you have to delay what's easy, to build what's great. So, what is delayed gratification? It's the ability to resist short-term pleasure for the sake of long-term progress. It's saying, I could have this now, but I'll wait. Because I know what's coming is better. Sounds simple, but it's not easy. Because we live in a world built to keep you distracted, addicted, and impulsive. Everything is now. Fast, convenient, comfortable, rewarding. And the longer you live in that rhythm, the more your brain starts to crave immediate relief, not meaningful reward. But here's what most people don't realize. Every time you choose comfort over commitment, you weaken the muscle of your future. You teach your body, I don't need to try. I don't need to wait. I don't need to work for it. And little by little, that mindset steals everything from you. But there's another way. You build the muscle of sacrifice. You learn to say no to now, so you can say yes to something much bigger later. And that's where real freedom begins. Let's break it into real-world examples. You want to get fit. The donut is easy. The workout is hard. But 6 months from now, the donut gives you nothing. The discipline gives you everything. You want to grow your income. The comfort of Netflix feels nice, but deep work compounds. 3 hours of watching, temporary peace. 3 hours of focus, permanent skill. You want better relationships. A petty argument lets you feel right, but patience helps you build something that lasts. You want real intimacy? It takes restraint, empathy, understanding, all of which require emotional delay. This is not about punishment. This is about power. The power to pause, the power to wait, the power to choose what actually builds you. Let's go deeper. Your brain is wired for rewards. Dopamine is released when you anticipate pleasure, not just when you get it, but when you expect it. So companies, apps, platforms, they all train you to crave that hit. Notifications, likes, messages, sugary food, quick entertainment. But every hit of dopamine without effort makes it harder to pursue things that require effort. So, what's the antidote? Rewiring your brain through intentional delay. Let's walk through how to build this. Step 1. Awareness of your impulses. Before you can delay gratification, you have to recognize when you're chasing it. Notice when you scroll just to avoid silence, when you snack just to soothe emotion, when you distract yourself to avoid discomfort. Call it out. I'm chasing comfort. I'm looking for escape. I'm trying to feel good now, instead of becoming better later. That awareness. It's step 1. Step 2. Create a 10-minute rule. Next time you feel the urge, wait 10 minutes. Don't say no forever. Just pause. In that pause, reflect. What's the cost of this quick comfort? What's the long-term benefit of saying no? What happens if I choose differently this time? Most impulses pass. Most cravings fade. But every time you delay, you build trust with yourself. You tell your brain, we don't chase easy anymore. We build great. Step 3. Replace the reward. You don't just remove pleasure. You replace it with purpose. Instead of binging, you journal. Instead of scrolling, you take a walk. Instead of reacting, you breathe and reflect. You create a new loop. Resist greater than. Replace greater than reward. This keeps your system supported. It doesn't feel like loss, it feels like growth, and that's sustainable. Step 4. Connect every sacrifice to your identity. This is key. Don't just delay for the sake of it. Link every act of discipline to who you're becoming. I skip the party because I'm building a dream. I wake up early because I'm not average. I let go of instant pleasure because I'm not built for shortcuts. You're not giving something up. You're trading it for a better future. Let's reflect. This entire journey started with thought. Then it moved to belief. Then action. Then focus. Then response. Now, we arrive at delay. The final test. Can you live today for tomorrow? Can you say no to now in faith that something greater is coming? If you can, you'll enter a league most people never touch, because most people are chasing a feeling. But you're building a life. Let's end with this. Every time you delay gratification, you're telling your future self, I see you, I believe in you, and I'm willing to fight for you. And over time, That person, the one you see in your mind, becomes real. Not because you chased every craving, but because you chose your future. And that is the quiet superpower of sacrifice. Everything has led you here. Now you walk forward, no longer searching, but becoming. Let's pause here. Take a deep breath. Look back, not to regret, but to recognize how far you've come. This isn't just the end of a video. It's the beginning of a new version of you. One that was always there, but buried. Beneath old thoughts, old emotions, old beliefs, old distractions. You didn't just learn tools, you reclaimed your power. Let's reflect. You started this journey with questions. Deep, quiet ones, the kind we rarely say out loud. Am I stuck? Or just scared? Why do I keep starting over? Will I ever feel like I'm enough? And you didn't run from them. You walked into them. You stood with them. And through every chapter you peeled back a layer of yourself. You learned that change doesn't begin with action. It begins with awareness. You don't need to burn everything down. You just need to wake up to what you've been repeating. And you did. You faced the painful truth in Chapter 1, that the life you're living may not reflect who you're meant to be. You stepped out of the comfort zone in Chapter 2 and saw it for what it really is. Slow decay disguised as safety. You chose discipline over motivation in Chapter 3, showing up even when you didn't feel like it. You embraced small wins in Chapter 4, realizing that progress is not always loud, but it is always real. You rewrote your identity in Chapter 5, not by wishing for a new life, but by becoming a new version of yourself. You cut the dead weight in Chapter 6, not just people, but habits, thoughts, and excuses. You walked into solitude in Chapter 7, and found that sometimes the silence says what the world never could. You built routines in Chapter 8, systems so solid you don't have to rely on emotion to move forward. You learned to embrace boredom in Chapter 9, because repetition isn't failure, it's transformation. You stopped being the thought in Chapter 10, and started being the thinker. You mastered your emotional world in Chapter 11, choosing responses over reactions, power over panic. And in Chapter 12, you trained the rarest skill of all, delayed gratification. You stopped trading what you want most for what you want now. And now, you're standing in a new space, a space most people never reach, not because it's far, but because it's hard to walk through the fog to get here. But you did. You walked through it. You met the parts of yourself that were hiding. You chose courage over comfort. You broke cycles. You broke silence. You broke through. Now, let's be honest. This doesn't mean you'll never feel lost again, or tired, or unmotivated, or unsure. It means when those moments come, you'll know what to do. You'll remember, I'm not the thought. I'm not the emotion. I'm the one who chooses. I'm the one who builds. I'm the one who continues. Because this version of you doesn't fall apart when it rains. You've built roots, and roots don't panic when the wind picks up. You'll face new tests, new pressure, new silence, and that's okay, because now you carry the one thing that can never be taken from you, awareness, and awareness is the beginning of freedom. So what happens next? You live, but not like before. You live with intention. You live with truth. You live with clarity. You live with fire. Not in your words, but in your quiet persistence. You are no longer chasing change. You're embodying it. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to keep showing up. Not for the world. For you. For the version of yourself that stayed buried under fear for too long. For the future that's already unfolding in front of you. And, most importantly, for the peace you finally earned by becoming you. Let me leave you with one final image. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight, but when it's planted in the right soil, protected, watered, nurtured, it will grow. It doesn't force itself upward. It doesn't shout. It doesn't panic. It just keeps reaching toward the light. That's you now. You've planted something. Something honest. Something strong. Something real. Now, let it grow. This is your quiet revolution. One thought at a time. One breath at a time. One day at a time. No more rushing. No more reacting. No more waiting for permission. You've already become who you needed. Now just keep becoming.